Hello, partners, investors. Craig McGrother here, the Director of Business Development, alongside, of course, as always, Rob Beardsley, the founder and principal of Lone Star Capital. Where are we today?
We're here at Cortland Copperleaf, our latest acquisition. This is a beautiful 2003 vintage asset in Northwest Houston. Super excited to be in Houston today. As you know, this is a major market for us. We own nearly $500 million of multifamily property here, which we've been very successful with. And specifically, we own nearly 1,000 units within a 10-mile radius, making this acquisition a great fit for our portfolio. Excitingly, this is an institutional quality asset. However, we're able to pick this up at an incredible basis of less than $143,000 per unit, equating to about a 6.5% going in cap rate. And that's because of the current market environment and the dislocation that we're seeing. Specifically, this seller has some problems in their portfolio, and their equity partner in this deal has elected to sell in this environment, which is creating an exceptional buying opportunity for us.
Well, it's amazing to see a deal trade at a 6.5 cap rate, especially when you consider the quality of the asset. You look around here, you're going to see on this tour that there's incredible units. About $25,000 per door roughly has been put in from the past seller. So when we see things like that, we obviously want to jump all over it. And these windows and buying opportunities are very small. They open and close, and they're very small blips in time in the market cycle. For you, the investor, this is perfect. So you're not going to want to miss out on this one.
That's a very good point as well. Not only is this a 2003 beautiful asset, it's also been upgraded with over $6 million in renovations. So when we go and look at the interiors, we're going to see beautiful interiors that compete with new development.
Yeah, and speaking of new development, there's not much in this area going on. So we'll obviously get into that in a little bit. But tell us a bit more about the property overview as well and kind of what made us want to jump all over this opportunity.
Aside from the things mentioned, it's a great size, 240 units, with most of the units being 2 and 3 bedrooms. That makes this great for families. And this location matches that well, as we're in the Cypress Fairbanks School District, which is ranked number 6 in Houston and actually number 1 for sports.
Interesting. So with that said as well, obviously having just shy of 1,000 units in the area, we're going to give the benefit of economies of scale, considering we are vertically integrated with our in-house property management, Radiance Living, of course, which was founded 3 years ago now, which is crazy to say. What are the details about this property really jumped out to you? I mean, the performance or the potential returns of this deal are obviously incredibly exciting. We see the cash on cash, the equity multiple and whatnot, but dive into some more of those details.
Yeah, so investors are definitely going to be excited by the numbers. They're going to see a great prospective return from an IRR basis as well as cash on cash, but a real savvy investor is going to notice the low risk profile of this deal, right? We have a beautifully recently constructed asset which exhibits 0 deferred maintenance. So there's little risk of future issues popping up with roofs or plumbing or things like that, which is great for investors. And then the quality of the tenant base is very strong. You have a sticky tenant base, they make a lot of money, it's an affordable property, so there's room to push rents. Actually, Yardi is projecting 4% rent growth throughout our hold period, but of course we're sticking to our typical conservative standards of a 3% annual rent increase projection.
That's awesome, and you actually mentioned a bunch of things there that I want to unpack. So first off, no deferred maintenance. Obviously, in an area like Houston, there's a lot of weather, not a lot of weather issues, but there definitely is a lot of rain and there's heat and whatnot. So you definitely see a lot of dry rot and whatnot, or maybe some paint chipping. But when you drive through this property, no paint chipping, everything looks pristine like it's a new build, which of course is great because we're competing directly with the new builds, which is incredible. On top of that, we really love this Northwest sub-pocket due to the fact that it's not in a flood zone, right? So we feel very safe and protected being away from the bay. Over the hold period, we don't feel like there's much weather threats here, which is, of course, one of the biggest issues and items you have to concern when we are speaking with our capital partners and investors, right?
Yeah, for more reasons than just the economics driving the Northwest pocket of Houston, you also have the reduced weather risk of Northwest Houston.
Yeah. Now, maybe can you tell us about some of the really key items that, we're attracted to, right? Incomes in the area, occupancy. Tell us about those items.
We're looking for stable acquisitions that can thrive even in a down market. This property has historically very high occupancy and a stable tenant base, which makes it a strong candidate to withstand a recession.
Over the last couple of years, where's occupancy fell for this specific opportunity?
The property's occupancy ranges from 94 to 97%.
That's awesome. So we can feel very confident with that going and lasting throughout this potential recession coming up here. But also, not only do we have to think about occupancy, but incomes. What is the incomes in this radius?
You have about 73,000 median household incomes in a 1 mile radius, and then they only improve as you get out. So once you get out to a 3 mile radius, you're talking about 100K median household incomes.
And I couldn't help but notice the average sales price for homes are pretty incredible in the area. Can you dive into that too?
Yeah, the nearest neighborhood has average home prices about 400,000.
That's awesome. That's a very compelling spread between buying and renting in this specific pocket. So obviously, this is a gorgeous building. It's aesthetically pleasing. The incomes are good in this area. But let's get into the business plan, the meat and potatoes, how we're going to create investor value.
Well, going back to my comment about low risk, the beauty of this acquisition is we're not relying on a heavy business plan to achieve our returns. And that can make investors comfortable in light of, let's say, a slowing down economy where you're relying on rent increases to hit your returns. So specifically for the business plan here at Cortland Copperleaf, we're only looking at minor enhancements to the property to drive further returns. Specifically, we're talking about adding private yards where applicable. So certain first floor units have space in the backyard to expand out and build a private yard, which people honestly love because then they can have a space private for their pets, etc., and to hang out with their family. Secondly, we'll be installing EV charging stations, which is only growing in popularity. Also, something that we're doing across the portfolio that we're seeing a ton of success with is installing bulk internet at our properties. In this property, we will do the same with a tech package as well. So what that means is the property is going to purchase bulk internet and then sell it individually to the tenants and make a small spread. What I absolutely love about this strategy is it actually doesn't increase the cost burden to the resident, right? When you raise rent on a resident, they can only bear that cost going up so much. It's based on their income. However, everyone has internet these days. So if they're buying it from you versus somebody else, it's not really adding a cost burden to them. Actually, we're able to provide the internet at a cheaper cost in many cases, which is only better for our residents and reduces their cost burden.
Moreover, it's actually a selling point too. When you move into a unit and you're maybe moving across the country, the last thing you want to think about is, oh great, now I got to set up all these utilities, go through all those hoops, get a service person out here. If you don't work from home, that can be very annoying. But to have that service ready to go, I think not only is it beneficial because the tenant and the renter gets a better price, but it makes for a way more seamless and smooth transition into moving into Cortland Copperleaf, this specific apartment complex.
The added benefit as well is the integration with our tech package, which, as you know, is where we go and install smart locks and smart thermostats at the property, which makes a more easy experience for the residents.
Yeah, so we have a Class A property here, getting Class A amenities added to it. Naturally, the amenities here are pretty sweet, which we'll obviously walk through here in a bit. But what other business items and plans does this property have that you haven't mentioned so far?
So lastly, we'll be adding a business center. But really, that's it. It speaks to the low risk of this business plan and the fact that we're actually buying a core plus asset, but projecting to achieve at least value add returns. And that makes for a very exciting opportunity.
Of course, the big elephant in the room for any acquisition being made in 2024 and 2025, and really for every deal, right? But the elephant in the room, financing. Let's get into it. What is going to be the debt profile for this specific deal?
So for this deal, like many of our acquisitions these days, we're pursuing 5-year fixed rate financing. And the reason why we like that is we think it's a perfect blend of low risk yet opportunistic. And what that means is we have a 5-year loan, usually from Freddie Mac, and in this case it will be a Freddie Mac loan. And so with a 5-year loan, that's plenty of term to reduce maturity risk, but it's not so long that we get caught up into a very onerous prepayment penalty. So if the market improves and we can exit for a great return in 3 to 5 years, we'll be able to do so and pay a minimal prepayment penalty.
Yeah. What's the yield maintenance like for this deal?
It'll be a 4.5 years yield maintenance.
Okay, gotcha. So we have 4.5-year yield maintenance. How about the interest only period?
Right now it's looking like 2 years of interest only, which is great obviously for the first couple years of cash flow. But what I also really want to emphasize is when investors are analyzing the cash on cash returns of this investment, they need to realize that it is only 2 years of interest only, and the back 3 years of the pro forma are actually amortizing cash flows, which is very exciting when you actually unpack that because the true cash on cash, if you will, is greater than what the numbers show.
We all know that this last year has brought very tumultuous and volatile interest rates. What are we assuming here?
So we're actually underwriting a 6% interest rate, which, if you recall, the going in cap rate is over 6.5%. So we have a 50 basis point positive spread, but it actually gets better because Based on today's rates, our interest rate would be 5.8%, which would be a 70 basis point positive spread from our cap rate to our interest rate, which is a very unique opportunity to be able to buy this quality of property in this great of a location with that sort of positive spread on your interest rate to cap rate.
Incredible. Let's get in now to the submarket. Why do we love it so much?
So we already talked a little bit about the submarket, given the strong schools, but we need to talk about the jobs in the area. There's actually 122,000 jobs in a 5-mile radius, and that job market is underpinned by healthcare, energy, and industrial. These are very strong industries. In particular, healthcare is very recession resistant, so this is a very robust job market, which attracts high-income families.
And I saw a pretty impeccable stat on our OM regarding the amount of development coming to the local vicinity here, to the tune of about $1 billion, correct, in development coming in that's landing 2023 to 2025.
Well, that's just talking about healthcare developments, over $1 billion that are going to be completed by 2025.
Which fits perfectly in for our hold cycle here. Obviously, this is a projected 5-year hold. That will land, we'll soak up the benefits of that in our hold process and hopefully be able to exit that to the next buyer.
Specifically, we're right here on West Road, which benefits from 20,000 cars per day of traffic, which is great for frontage and is one of the reasons why the property stays so full.
As you know, we target high growth submarkets, with Cypress Fairbanks being no exception. From 2016 to 2021, it experienced about 9.4% growth in the area and expected to continue that pace as well throughout our hold period. Now let's go to risks. What are some of the perceived risks for this opportunity in your opinion?
So we kind of covered what we don't see as risks, specifically the high quality construction, right, and the recent upgrades that the property has experienced, which mitigates future risk of deferred maintenance. But of course, no investment is immune from risk. So what we see here as risks would be specific to the economy. So what we have is exposure to the Houston economy, which while it is the 4th largest city in the country and a very robust economy, it still is a city that has its own risks. Specifically in this pocket, we have energy exposure. We have some very great energy companies nearby, but if energy does have a recession, that's going to more so impact this property than it would a different location with no energy exposure. So we could see a slowdown in rents, occupancy, collections through a general slowdown of the economy, specifically in energy. But of course, all signs point to a pretty strong energy performance and oil remaining at a high enough level to support the hiring of the local economy, local energy economy, that is.
Right, so the micro risk, of course, is subject to Houston, which is oil and gas. And of course, there's a macro risk, which is not just affecting the Houston market, but any investment, if one were to make a multifamily investment currently or a real estate investment, which is, of course, softening rents and occupancy, potentially a little higher crime due to the recession, right? So that is something that's not just subject to this property or investment opportunity, that's just subject to any real estate acquisition and investment one could be making right now.
But I do want to counter that and just say that this property this property and area have very low crime, very strong fundamentals. We definitely believe in the pocket. So we don't see those as strong risks, but we want to point them out as possibilities.
Absolutely. And, of course, strategies change over time. Things ebb and flow. Where we're at in the current market cycle, we're really not looking to take deals that have, sub 90% occupancy or, areas that are or properties that are, I guess, older per se. We definitely want to target the sweeter deals like this one, which is, higher occupancy, better vintage, less deferred maintenance, where there's just some meat on the bone there for us to add, but it's really just buying at a better basis and, selling it in a more fruitful and more prosperous market.
The last thing I want to mention, which is a risk but also an upside, are the capital markets. So as you know, what's allowing us to get in at such a great basis, both from a price per unit and a cap rate basis, is because of the dislocations in the market and the recent rise in interest rates. Well, there's the opportunity that interest rates come down and that cap rates recompress, allowing us to actually benefit from dramatic appreciation of the property through selling at a lower cap rate. However, the risk to the contrary of that would be that cap rates remain structurally higher for longer than our hold period, which would prevent us from selling at an attractive price in 3 to 5 years.
That's true. However, the strong cash flows in the newer age of this property make it a great contender to hold longer. Now that we've discussed this deal in depth, why don't we take a look at some of the units in the amenities? Here we are in the model unit. As you can see, it's totally beautiful. Every unit inside this complex has been upgraded to the premium finish, which will compete with new construction in the vicinity. Now that we've seen the model unit, why don't we take a look at a vacant 3-bedroom. We're here inside of the spacious 3-bedroom unit overlooking the resort-style pool. Why don't we take a look at that as well as the other amenities this property has to offer. Thank you so much for taking a tour with us here today at Cortland Copperleaf. If you have any questions regarding this deal or any other opportunity at Lone Star Capital, please feel free to call, text, or email me. Rob and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a great day.